Good, happy Thursday morning, June 4th, 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this Thursday morning, so let's begin. First up, COVID-19 in New Hampshire, what you need to know, information. Let's take a look at that right now. And here is a look at that information for all of you right now. There are 4,795 number of people in New Hampshire have tested positive for COVID-19. 1,859,323 number of people in the United States who have tested positive. 265 number of deaths from COVID-19 in New Hampshire. 468 number of people who have been hospitalized with COVID-19 in New Hampshire. And 106,925 number of deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. Let's take a look at this current map of New Hampshire right here, where current cases of COVID-19 are in New Hampshire. Manchester, 392. And let's take a look at this map here of total cases of COVID-19 in New Hampshire. Manchester, 1227. Now let's take a look at these three charts here. Let's start with the first chart. New cases each day in New Hampshire. In the purple, daily new positive COVID-19 cases. In the orange, new hospitalizations. And in the red are the deaths. Now let's take a look at this chart here. Total current COVID-19 cases. And in the orange, current hospitalizations. And let's take a look at this chart here. Total positive COVID-19 cases in purple. Orange, total hospitalizations, red, deaths, and blue, recovered. And now let's take a look at these charts here. Age group of cases, female and male of cases, and risk information. Let's take a look at these charts here. Infections, hospitalizations, and deaths. And now let's take a look at these charts here. Deaths, percent of New Hampshire population, race/ethnicity of cases, and hospitalizations. And now let's take a look at this chart here. Your common symptoms: fever, lack of smell, cough, chills, and difficult breathing. How it spreads, and prevention tips. And be sure to stay with the Riley King Network for the latest of your COVID-19 information. Large crowd gathers in Keene to protest racial injustice. Demonstrations held in city's Central Square. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Tim Callery.
As the PGA Tour gets back into the swing of things, at ServPro, we're helping businesses around the country do the same with our certified ServPro Cleaned program. It's a higher standard of clean that helps reduce the spread of viral pathogens, adheres to CDC standards, and uses proprietary EPA-approved disinfectants. So keep your employees and customers feeling secure. Put our shield on your door today.
Make sure your business is certified. ServPro Clean today. Central Square in Keene was the hub for Monday's Black Lives Matter rally. Hundreds of people from all different backgrounds stood together holding signs that read Black Lives Matter, Justice for George, and I Can't Breathe. Drivers passing by blew their car horns as a sign of solidarity.
So many people came out and there's so much support, and it's so emotional.
I grew up here, and this is such a homogenous town. We're very niche community. We don't have many people of color, but it's in a privileged town like this. We have a responsibility to stand up for what's right.
At one point, the entire crowd took a knee in a moment of silence. Local police officers also joined in on the rally to show their support.
I am amazed by how many people showed up and how everybody's supporting our Black community. I'm amazed by our community.
Today's demonstration here in Keene is one of a series to take place all across the state in recent days.
Here in Keene, we're doing it peacefully. We're doing it the right way. There's a great turnout for the city of Keene. I'll tell you that right now. Great turnout, and basically trying to keep it positive and try to get on an equal level for everybody.
I'm just sick and tired of the violence. I can't imagine being a young Black male in this country. Fearful every day. They should not live like that.
This right here is the beginning of a revolution, a peaceful revolution, and this is not the end. Justice for George Floyd. Rest in peace, brother.
Reporting in Keene, I'm Tim Callery, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Somerville declares racism a public health emergency. Let's take a listen to that video from WCVB Boston.
Protect your business with all glass germ barriers from Oasis Specialty Glass. We have custom fit transaction windows, sneeze guards, glass partitions, and more. Stop cross-contamination with an elegant and permanent glass solution. Order now at oasisspecialtyglass.com.
Good morning. Yes, the mayor of Somerville here wants to declare a local state of emergency, saying that racism is a threat to public health and safety, and he's outlining several steps that are focused on the police department. Take a look at some of those steps. Mayor Joe Curtatone is calling for the establishment of a civilian oversight committee to review use of force, officer misconduct, and other policies. The mayor will pursue eliminating internal investigation officers within the department, which Curtatone describes as inherent conflicts of interest. And the city will formally withdraw from a federal program that provides military weaponry to local police. Mayor Curtatone is also planning to push for police officers to wear body cameras. He says they must become a standard part of police work. The issue of body cameras in Somerville has been fought over and battled over since 2015. Curtatone says all of these changes are necessary because he feels that no one should fear for their lives because of the color of their skin. Live in Somerville, Sarah Conji, WCVB News Center.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Massive crowds gather for protest at Portland City Hall as organizers calling for peace. Let's take a listen to that video from WMTW News 8 Maine.
Giving the class of 2020 recognition they deserve. Channel 8 Senior Shoutouts.
Allison, a dramatically different scene at this hour compared to last night and even just a couple of hours ago. The stairs just outside of police headquarters. A few minutes ago, officers removed the barricades. For hours tonight, we did see demonstrators who are coming face to face with officers there. At times, some angry words were exchanged. But earlier today, this is really the story of the day. About 1,500 demonstrators gathered outside of Portland City Hall. Congress Street in that area was absolutely filled. Mayor Kate Snyder, along with members of the city council, kneeling with protesters. For more than 2 hours, protesters heard from speakers sharing their own experiences with racism. Organizers say that to create real change, they cannot rest.
It's the fact that we can't live. We have to die before people realize that we have to live. It's tiring. It's exhausting.
I thought the mood was very positive and angry, and that's okay. This is stuff to be angry about.
And just to give you a look at what's happening at this hour, this is certainly not indicative of the way that things have played out tonight, but we do have a line of police officers here with a couple of individuals behind the police officers accused of tagging the building that you see behind me with chalk. Everything, though, has remained peaceful here tonight. We haven't observed any property damage, anything like that. We will continue to monitor the situation here outside of Portland Police Headquarters.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. In demonstrations and march, Vermont youth call for justice. Let's take a listen to that video from NBC 5.
Here at Bailey Ford, it's hard to think of a single profession that doesn't involve math or technology. Our accounting
Some of the demonstrators might have been little, but their numbers and voices sure were big Wednesday. A youth-led march through Heinsberg calling for a steady focus on racial justice and on making our communities ever more welcoming places for people of all skin colors.
It means a lot. It means support. It means that people are here, they see us, they're coming to engage with us and move forward and try to make the country a better place.
Vermont may be more than 94% white, according to census numbers, but it has a long history of advocating for equality.
To the white people here today, I acknowledge your presence in this battle. Please continue to use your privilege to lift black voices to the sky.
What I want people to really think about is how they can help kids of color, black men, black women, to make sure they do feel safe. And going into a hospital, that they feel cared for, that going into a store, they won't have someone follow them around just because they're a person of color, and I want them to feel safe and welcomed in the world.
Some here wishing Heinsberg police officers would have joined the walk as partners.
I just thought it was appropriate to give them their space.
Though Chief Anthony Cambridge on Facebook promising his department is committed to fair and impartial policing, also condemning the actions that led up to George Floyd's death in Minneapolis as tragic and evil.
We don't train like that in Vermont. Maybe some states do, but we don't.
These young people pledging to keep up the advocacy, hoping their generation is the one that gets it right. In Heinsberg, Jack Thurston, NBC 5 News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Hogan, Maryland ready to enter stage 2 of coronavirus recovery plan. Let's take a listen to that video from WBAL TV 11 News, Katamara.
Have you ever talked to someone online and things just weren't adding up? Maybe they asked you for money or an iTunes gift card. Said
another key metric that the governor cited in being ready to reach stage 2 was, according to the CDC guidelines, that the state of Maryland's positivity rate has been below 15% and has been declining under 15% for 14 days straight. Because of that, he said it is safe to start stage 2 of the recovery. It'll begin this Friday at 5 p.m. This is the medium risk phase. It's when a large number of businesses and activities can reopen and resume. So Friday at 5, that includes large and small retail shops, offices including IT firms and legal offices, bank branches, insurance agencies, advertising, architecture, and design firms. He also said that nail salons, tanning, tattoos, massages, all of that can resume at 50% capacity. And we asked the governor if stage 2 for our state means lifting the 10-person cap on social gatherings. Here is his answer.
nobody is following that cap on social gatherings, because I think there were several thousand people in a social gathering. If you want to count that, I don't know how you define a social gathering, but the 10-person limit is technically still in effect, but it's still not really safe to be gathered with more than 10 people closely together. But most people are not following that, and it's probably something, I think every state still has it in place, and nobody's following it. So it's a great question to end on.
So also, as part of Stage 2, Monday, June 8th, Maryland state government, the governor said, will begin to reopen operations, including MVA branches. I've had a lot of people ask me about that. Select branches will reopen. It is by appointment only. And any sector that is reopening now under Stage 2, the governor said, must adhere to strict health requirements. Reporting live from Annapolis tonight, I'm Kate Amara, WBAL TV 11 News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Winston-Salem, Greensboro protests gathered Wednesday evening. Let's take a listen to that video from WXII NBC 12.
Web Heating and Air Conditioning is proud to present our new Energy Works division, offering home energy assessments, installation services, air sealing, and energy upgrades. Call today to learn how we can help make your home comfortable and energy efficient.
Tonight was the third night the city of Greensboro was under an 8 p.m. curfew, and protesters in front of the International Civil Rights Center and Museum made a point of wrapping up in plenty of time. Elm Street, after a march, ended up being quite quiet a few minutes after the curfew kicked in tonight. Before the clock struck 8, one group marched up Elm chanting peaceful protest and then stopped right in front of the museum, which was damaged over the weekend. They took a knee, observed a moment of silence, and made a point of saying they had been seen, they had been heard, and they did not want any looting or arrests tonight. One protester we spoke with on camera said he did not wish to give his name.
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You know, we have to make sure that everybody's safe. We have willing and able bodies out here making sure that people are safe, making sure that people are getting home, making sure people are getting rides out. Safety is a big priority for us. It's not just cops who are attacking us. You know, there are a lot of people who are out here right now. But the dynamic today was beautiful.
And before that second group arrived, another group of protesters spent time there as well. Speakers here urged everyone listening to vote and to get involved in their community. They also made a point of wrapping up well before 8 o'clock because they said they didn't want the police to have any reason to believe what they were doing was negative. We asked for one speaker's thoughts on the new charges against the police officers involved in George Floyd's arrest when he died.
I make of it to say, about time. It took them long enough to arrest all of them when we could all clearly see that man was murdered right before our eyes on social media, begging for his mama. Black women wounds hurt, okay? We love our children. No matter how you all want to see them, we love our children. That's why he was calling for his mama with his last breath.
So compare the video you just saw with what the situation looked like on Monday night, the first night of the curfew, when protesters locked arms in front of the museum until officers in riot gear and some on bikes moved in their direction down Elm until they dispersed near the Nathaniel Greene statue. Police ended up making 6 arrests on that day, all locals, all for violating the curfew. Now, for perspective on what has been happening this evening in Winston-Salem, let's send things over to Brandon Bates. He has been live, walking with protesters and hearing their stories as well. Brandon, what have you seen tonight?
Well, Kenny, good evening to you. Every night this week, Winston-Salem has seen protests. Today, hundreds of people lined up right here at City Hall to get their message across. They had several demands for the city as well as the county. Take a look at some of this video. It was the Black Lives Matter protesters. They started at 6, didn't end until around 9:15 tonight. The group stopped by several city buildings, chanting George Floyd's name. They laid on the ground for the same amount of time George Floyd was on the ground before he died. The group of hundreds of people stopped at the Winston-Salem Detention Center to address the inmates who were banging on the windows of their cells. A very powerful moment. Listen to this.
To me, that was powerful because the inmates were in there banging on the walls, like, I can hear you. And it was just amazing to be, 23, to be able to live through something like this.
The goal of the protest tonight, according to the Facebook event, was to demand several things from the city of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. First, protesters wanted all officers present during George Floyd's death arrested, a statement of support as well from local elected officials. And as Kenny mentioned at the top of the show, those officers were arrested shortly before this protest started, and protesters here in Winston-Salem we talked to were ecstatic about that news. The second demand is to release nonviolent offenders from local jails to avoid the spread of the coronavirus. That is why we saw the group of people outside of that jail tonight. The last two demands include a systematic effort to reduce routine traffic stops protesters say are unfairly aimed directly at the black community. Also, lastly, people asking to hold off on local foreclosures and evictions. Now, if you remember, last night protesters shut down Interstate 52 in Winston-Salem. At no point did the demonstration become violent last night. That is the case tonight. It looked like they were going to head towards 52 today, but they did take a turn on Patterson, and they came right back here where it started to City Hall. But once again, protests here in Winston-Salem tonight, everything was peaceful, and it ended right here. Reporting live in Winston-Salem tonight, Brandon Bates, WXII 12 News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Hobo Sound residents evacuated after flooding damages dozens of homes. Let's take a listen to that video from WPBF 25 News.
Are you responsible for paying your family's entire health insurance bill? Is your premium higher than...
The bottom level is 4 inches underwater. I have hardwood floors. All the drywall's got to come up.
Martin Searcy has lived in Hope Heights since 1990, and he says the flooding has never been this bad. He gave us a look around his house to see the damage, and he says it's heartbreaking to see his house like this.
It's gone down about half. It was about 4 inches total.
Searcy says the flooding is being caused by the retention ponds in the neighborhood.
The only thing they did wrong was they just pumped it so it wasn't on the roads, and then they turned off the pump. And when it started raining again, it just filled up, and there's 9 houses that are flooded.
But since there are several retention ponds, they have all flooded, causing several to have to evacuate, which left many with no choice but to save what they could from water damage in any way. Some were using small boats and U-Haul trucks to pack what they could, while others took what they could in trash bags. Searcy says the flooding is a big blow on top of everything else the community is already dealing with, but he's hopeful the flooding will reside soon.
I just have to knuckle under and, hope it's going to be fixed. Put it back to the way it was.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Hundreds march to Capitol during Floyd protest in Sacramento. Let's take a listen to that video from KCRA 3 NBC News.
Protect yourself and those you love with high-quality face masks from Boomer Naturals. Get 3 ultra-comfortable layers of cotton polyester.
Tests like those are happening in cities and towns across the country. It's in response to the death of George Floyd while in custody on Minneapolis, with Minneapolis police, I should say.
Now we turn it over to KCRA3's Emily Maha. She is live for us at 11th and J Streets in downtown Sacramento with the latest. Emily?
Lisa Golston, this is one of the main arteries here in downtown Sacramento, and you can see tonight just a handful of cars heading down J Street right now. Not a lot of people out here. The city's curfew going into effect at 8 o'clock. It was a different scene in parts of this area yesterday when police made several arrests in this area after a protest just down the street at Cesar Chavez Plaza. We were there yesterday. Those protesters dispersing peacefully around 9:30 before a large law enforcement presence closed in on the plaza to see if anyone was lingering around. We were at Cesar Chavez Plaza tonight, earlier this evening, right around 9:30. Protesters finished up their night there, peacefully dispersing for the night. But what we didn't see tonight that we saw yesterday was that very large law enforcement presence. And again, down here in downtown Sacramento, not a lot of people out on the roads. We've seen very few people walking around out here as that curfew has been in effect for about 3 hours now. Reporting live downtown in Limaha, KCRA 3 News.
All right, Emily, thank you so much. KCRA 3 Stephanie Lynn has been with protesters in Sacramento all night.
Yeah, she joins us right now with the very latest.
Right now, things look pretty calm here at Cesar Chavez Plaza. You can see behind us a memorial is continuing to grow here. No police presence or apparent show of officers here in the plaza like we saw yesterday to enforce curfew at around 8 p.m. We do have pictures from Livecopter 3 to show you, showing demonstrators gathering for another day to stand in solidarity with the events of what transpired in Minneapolis. We saw demonstrators today from all different ethnicities, the LGBTQ community, even the Native American community, as well as doctors, white coats against racism. Now, this crowd grew throughout the day and stopped at certain points to kneel and chant. We also heard from incoming City Councilwoman Katie Valenzuela. She will represent District 4, much of the area which was impacted by the looting we saw over the weekend. She told me today she plans to take action and change how policing is done in our city.
We have to hear this cry that's decades old, that Black communities have been asking us to take steps to make them safe. And I believe that just with every fiber in my being, these videos, these tapes, just the incidences, the stuff I've watched happen on our streets since this started, it's not okay. And we need, as a community, to stand up and say that's not okay.
Another look out here at the memorial here at Cesar Chavez Plaza, signs reading, "You must be the change, vote." Now, we did hear from one of the demonstrators here, but they do plan to gather folks for another day of demonstrations at 5:30, and then they will march at 6 p.m. Again, that's happening tomorrow. Reporting from Cesar Chavez Plaza in Sacramento, Stephanie Lynn, KCRA 3 News.
Okay, there you go on that video and that report. Stock features drop as Wall Street rally looks to pause. Features contract tied to the major U.S. stock index fell in early trading Thursday following yet another robust day on Wall Street. All 4 officers in George Floyd death face charges. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on this Wednesday night, the 9th night of protests across this country demanding change after the death of George Floyd. And tonight, the major news here, all 4 former police officers involved have now been charged in his death. Derek Chauvin, his knee on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes, charges against him now upgraded from 3rd to 2nd degree murder. Toe Tao, who stood by, now charged with aiding and abetting murder. And the same for Thomas Lane and J. Alexander King, who authorities say helped hold Floyd down. In Minneapolis, a cheer went up at the spot where Floyd died when they received word that all 4 would be charged. At the same time, across this country tonight, thousands are marching in the streets. This is from New York City. Also gathering not far from the White House. On the move in Detroit tonight and in Los Angeles, massive crowds gathering again, demanding justice. In announcing the charges, Minnesota's Attorney General said that he is seeking justice for George Floyd and his family because George Floyd mattered, he said. His life had value. At the same time, he said that convicting police officers is difficult. Late today, former President Obama and his new message to young men and women of color in this country. And there are also breaking developments at this hour involving President Trump and his defense secretary. We'll guide you through it all again tonight, and we're going to begin with these new charges against those ex-officers. And ABC's Alex Perez leads us off from Minneapolis.
As protests spread around the world, tonight all 4 fired Minneapolis police officers now charged in connection with the death of George Floyd.
Here today because George Floyd is not here. He should be here. He should be alive, but he's not.
The state's attorney general increasing charges to second-degree murder for Derek Chauvin, the officer seen digging his knee into Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes.
Please, I can't breathe.
The other 3 officers, Toe Tao, J. Alexander King, and Thomas Lane, now charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder.
George Floyd mattered. He was loved. His family was important. His life had value. And we will seek justice for him and for you, and we will find him.
The complaint also says Officer Tao got a hobble restraint to bind Floyd's feet, but the officers decided not to use it and instead stayed on top of him. According to the original complaint, one of the officers said, "Should we roll him on his side?" But Chauvin didn't do that. Floyd's family attorney calling the new charges a step towards justice.
I believe this is the tipping point in America, where we finally address something they don't like to talk about.
The crowd erupting as word spread that the other officers were being charged.
All 4 officers have been charged! Yeah! We got all 4!
We got all 4!
The autopsy commissioned by Floyd's family found it was a homicide by asphyxiation, and that the other officers seen in this video restraining Floyd may have contributed to his death.
The weight of the other 2 police officers on his back, who not only prevented blood flow into his brain, but also airflow into his lungs.
The official medical examiner's autopsy also found it was a homicide, but pointing to cardiopulmonary arrest that was complicated by law enforcement restraint and neck compression. But family experts say it wasn't his heart, it was the pressure applied by officers. The day started with Floyd's son Quincy visiting the site.
How important is change? What do you want to see happen? We need change. This can't happen to anybody else.
Quincy kneeling and praying where his 46-year-old father took his last breaths, tonight applauding the arrest.
My father should not be killed like this. We deserve justice.
And Floyd's bright-eyed 6-year-old daughter Gianna speaking about her father to our Eva Pilgrim.
What do you want people to know? Kind of that I miss him. He played with me.
Gianna's mother, Roxy Washington, says Floyd loved his daughter, and she's struggling to explain his death.
She doesn't know what happened. I told her that her dad died because he couldn't breathe.
But little Gianna does know about her father's legacy.
That changed the world.
So let's get to Alex Perez in Minneapolis again tonight at that growing memorial there behind you. So powerful to hear from his little girl. And Alex, late today, the state attorney general did make a point of saying that prosecuting officers is always difficult.
Yeah, David, he said extremely difficult, but they say with the evidence they are collecting right now, they feel they have a case. They are building a case where they will be able to get a conviction. This community here, David, now preparing for that big memorial tomorrow afternoon. David?
Alex Perez with us again tonight. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Step.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for this morning edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. Thank you for watching this morning edition. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here later on today for another newscast. I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye, everyone.